Hello! You're listening to Digital Disruptors, a PMW mini-series featuring winners from this year's 30 Under 30 Performance Marketing Awards. This podcast addresses the gap between this generation and ones that have been in the industry years and years before them. In this episode, I'm joined by Noelle Runo, Head of International Marketing and Communications at Making Science, and Jodie Millward, Agency Partnerships Lead UK at Linkby. We looked at what data-driven marketing strategies are working today and which ones are outdated, why brands need to be focusing on their first-party data, and how AI will be making their data-driven marketing decisions a lot more efficient. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Noelle and Jodie, thank you for joining me. We're talking about data for this episode, and I wanted to know, when did you first start becoming interested in data? And when is a moment in your career when you realized how powerful data is in performance marketing?
So I actually fell into the world of affiliate marketing straight from university. So I didn't have a clue what that meant. And that obviously was fully down to data-driven marketing campaigns. So really understanding the affiliate networks and how you can track end-to-end all the performance of a campaign. So where the clicks are driven from, what conversions, what they're buying, what links they're clicking on, and being able to really look at that raw data and understand what campaigns are performing well. I feel like brands always tend to work with the same publishers and you just expect them to perform really well. But when you actually do look at the data and you're like, okay, this one test publisher that we've launched with actually drove double the conversions in comparison to the one that you always have an always on partnership with, it's actually always driving it back to the data to see a A/B test and really see the clear results. So I would say yes, affiliate marketing has opened up my world to data.
Yeah, my story is kind of similar to yours, but I didn't go into, affiliate was a part of what I did straight after uni, but I went more into an omni-channel approach, and I fell in love with Google Analytics at the time, and that was where I could really see the patterns of the consumer journey. So I used to work at a beauty retailer back in the day, and it was really interesting to see how you could base so many campaigns, segments, and ideas of the data you were getting in or analyzing in the end. So you might think that this shampoo is selling really well because the brand's really popular, but actually it's the other shampoo B that is actually performing so much better, and that's the one you need to target and sell and do campaigns about. So that's sort of where I started to understand this data is so valuable. So it's not just gut feeling the whole time
100%.
Yeah, because sometimes you think oh, I love this brand, let's push that, but the data is actually telling you no, we need to go this way, and this is actually the audience that will buy it.
Yeah, and you'll never know that until you test.
Exactly. Yeah.
Data could be very complex to look at, especially if you're very new to it. I mean, even with PMW, sometimes looking at our analytics and trying to figure out our audience and what they actually like is very difficult. How have you found ways to kind of simplify the process of looking at data and turn it into action that actually works and delivers results?
I think it's also the type of quality of data you have, because there is a lot of gaps in data, especially today. So, I mean, you could think, or you could see something on your platform and say, okay, this is where we should be targeting, this is where we should be focusing, but your results could be really, really bad. So you start blaming the solutions you've integrated, or you start blaming your data manager, what are you doing? So I think here it's really important that you first of all have a really good data foundation to then start segmenting and building your campaigns and who you should be targeting. I mean, today there's also a lot of tools like AI tools as well that you can implement to get really personalized campaigns out there, but not just personalized in terms of what you're searching for, but also the creative aspect of it as well. But you can't do all that unless you're collecting the right type of data. And I always say that first party data is the holy grail. I know that people like to talk about third, second, first, and then there's now a conversation about zero-party data as well. I don't actually know what zero-party data means, but I know what first-party data means. So it kind of comes back to your absolute basics of your data foundation to then build to what your consumer and what consumer want and creating your campaigns from there.
I mean, just with you mentioning AI as well, I think that's a big topic around data. And we were talking and saying that, Jodie, you were saying you're quite prepared for this because you've been doing a lot of research on AI. How have you found AI to be impacting the way that you process data?
I feel like around like AI, it's really good for the data like entries, keeping your like day-to-day like small tasks like really super simple, saving you a lot of time and effort. However, when it comes to like content creation with AI, at Linkby, we're an ad tech platform that basically facilitates brands to get premium editorial content. And that's on those publishers that have to trial and test your products. So when we talk about AI and kind of content creation, there has to be a human element for that publisher to be able to say, I recommend this product, I will give that a 4 out of 5 stars, because it's physically got to be tried and tested by a human. And that's what really drives that trust with their audiences. And I feel like now if I get an email that's generated by AI, an outreach email, I can spot it a mile off. So I'm there for content creation and AI kind of to be blended, but it's always got to have that human touch.
What are your ways to spot if something is AI?
It's
like top giveaway.
This is a really funny one. It's not mine. It's someone on my LinkedIn that I saw. So he went to Bath University. And the email said, "Hi, Steve. I know that you went to Bath University. Are you attending their summer party this year?" Why would anyone do that? Like, I don't know. I won't go to a summer party. But it's just like, it's really grasping at like key topics of you as your like LinkedIn or like your profile. And it's just not hitting where it needs to be hitting. And yeah, I can tell it off a mile off.
I think another one, which is, I work mostly with, creation of titles for events and podcasts and stuff like this. So I think if you look at the creativity part of things, you can spot, for example, in a title, if it has a column. If you have like the main claim, a column, and then the rest of the text, usually that is Gemini or ChatGPT.
Oh, spoiler.
Spoiler. So if this episode has this, AI.
I mean, I'm with AI. I'm not an AI skeptic or an AI hater. I very much think it's going to do wonders. Already is doing wonders in terms of just making people a lot more efficient, as long as you have that human touch. But I think there's still a lot of questions around the ethics of AI, and also with younger people. I think younger people are a bit more cautious about things like that, about privacy, about the way that their data is being used, and about how AI is going to be using their data. Why do you think that younger people are a lot more cautious than maybe other generations?
I think it's just the time we live in, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't even think it's cautious. I think they're just savvy about it. Like, this is my data, I own it. Like, what am I going to get out of this from like me sharing it with you? Like, brands have got to like trust that they need to give something back to that user for their data, because they now know what that is worth. And then don't just retarget them with like stuff that they don't want to see. Like, then they'll automatically just lose interest and withdraw. And I feel like that's the problem nowadays with like everyone just trying to spam all relevant content and things to audiences.
Yeah, but it also comes back to the brand loyalty, whether you are a retailer or agency, platform, and stuff like this. Because I mean, as an agency, of course, we want to collect your data. Of course, we want to retarget to relevant information. But I think it's more, even if you look at retailers, they see an increased brand trust if they know exactly what you're doing with the data. And it's the same thing if you look at ESG policies. People are becoming more concerned with like how sustainable are you? Are you measuring? Like, if I throw away a piece of clothing, for example, will I know where it ends up? 100%. And that's just, I think our generation is a bit more like, we know more about it because we also see more. And I think that's thanks to all the different platforms that we use, the information which is easy to grab, and that also translates to what our privacy is and what data people can actually collect from us.
Do you think there's an element to it of there being like a lack of education around things like cookies, for example? I hear a lot of people saying, no, I will never accept cookies on a website because I don't want them to steal my data and use it to do whatever. But I don't actually think there's a lot of people just normal day-to-day users that understand what cookies actually are and how they deliver very personalized ads to them. And actually, maybe if they did know what it means, they would enjoy it, because it means
I think
that
it's more of a scaremongering, like,
Yeah.
what am I signing up for? But then absolutely I'll sign up to your newsletter and get 10% off and give you all my data and everything like that. So I think it is kind of due to the confusion around like what actually is cookies, and then are they gonna be gone forever, and how that kind of resonates with them as a user.
Actually, I would say, I think the educational bit is between what does a third-party cookie mean versus a first-party cookie.
Yeah.
Because you can accept cookies, but only necessary. Because then, technically, you're only collecting your first party, and you can't, and there's, depending on the T's and C's and the GDPR that different businesses have, it depends on what data you can actually collect. So I think, for me, I always accept them, because I also want to see and measure where my data goes from my side. And I also want other businesses to also be able to measure my data to run different tests, campaigns and everything. So I'm okay with it, but I don't think people understand the difference between what sort of data people are collecting. So it's more the education between the first and the third party.
I mean, I have it sometimes on like Instagram, where if I see an ad about something that I've just searched or just talked about, I'd be a bit freaked out, because I'm like, oh my God, is it listening to me? And is that why I'm being shown this thing? But then other times I'd be grateful, because I'll be like, oh, actually, I did want to see this, and I am going to buy from this, and this is exactly the sort of thing that I want.
Yeah.
So, I think there's people just need to kind of understand it a bit more. Do you think marketers put a bit too much of a focus on targeting based on demographics and age with their audience, and not enough focus on the actual creativity from the data that they're collecting, and trying to make something that kind of resonates with everyone, rather than just, say, Gen Z, for example?
I think it depends on the objectives, to be honest. So we have a proprietary tool called Ad Machina, which is for multi-platform, so all the big technology platforms. And there we go from search to creative to PMax campaigns, all those sort of things. And we can really see that, your message translates through creatives as well. So it's not just about, okay, I'm going to focus on Gen Z specific and bulk campaign towards them. It's more like, okay, how can you hyper personalize the campaign towards this demographic? And this tool does this at scale and in different languages. So even if you are a brand who wants to say like, okay, we're expanding to Japan, let's say, and we want to have, let's say again, Gen Z there again, to be buying our products. We go, okay, so we have your target group, but how we're actually going to target them, what do they use? So maybe we know that Gen Z uses more creative imagery to convert. So then you have to choose the channels. You have to use good creativity that resonates to that target group, and go from there. So that's sort of my take on it. So it's not just about geolocation and having an age range. Of course you need the basics, but you also need to think about the messaging you're putting through and the different ways you're doing it, and it needs to be cohesive. So if you search black leggings on Google, for example, you'll see obviously the search come up, but then maybe, as you say, you go on to Instagram or TikTok, you start seeing reels of these high-waisted black leggings which fit you really well, and then you'll be more prone to convert to buy those leggings.
You've mentioned geolocation data as well, and I think that's something that's becoming very important in collecting data across performance marketing. How do you think that's going to continue changing in the future, and how is it going to connect with younger audiences? Do you think they will be pushing back about geolocation data, or do you think this is something that they'd be accepting of?
I think it really comes back to like the brand. Like if it was a brand that I care about and I wanted to have that kind of level of like selling that data back to the brand to be able to retarget me with things that I actually want, then I think that people will be happy to do that.
I think it's with the transparency You know, where's your data being collected from? How is it being collected? Is it sorted data? So I don't think people have a problem with geo-localized data. It's more what you do with it.
Yeah.
And how can brands become a bit more transparent then?
I think it's just your T's and C's and being really apparent with your GDPR. I mean, there are different things that you can put in place. For example, I don't know if you guys remember the Google Privacy Sandbox. So when that officially is done and everyone can use it, that's one way that brands can probably implement that to make sure that they are collecting the right sort of data. They have the GDPR, they have maybe enhanced conversions put on, consent mode is switched on, so you can browse in a secure way.
Yeah. And even when they're like asking for opt-in data, make it fun. Like just like, what are they going to get out of it? Like, as I said before, are they going to get like an exclusive code for like signing up to their newsletter, or what is it that they're actually going to gain from doing this and giving them like their data then to be retargeted? So yeah, what's in it for the end consumer?
I think it's a little bit cheeky. I don't know if you guys have seen that certain website you have to pay. Oh, you have to pay for a subscription.
I've covered that for BMW, where it's like either you consent to cookies or you pay.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah, for me that is like, I'm not going to pay, so I will be clicking. Yep,
100%.
Take my data and do what you want with it. But you know, that I think that's a bit of a cheeky way to get around it. But again, it comes back to, you know, I think I've been banging the same drum this whole podcast episode, saying like, you know, it's third-party data in the end that they're probably going to resell, so it's not good data.
So then should be, I mean, especially with Google's initially saying that it was going to get rid of third-party cookies and then going back on that decision. That was kind of, I remember us discussing it on PMW and us saying how this was kind of a wake-up call for everyone in terms of, even if Google's going back on that decision, not getting rid of third-party cookies anymore, this is a sign for brands to be really thinking about first-party data and really to be putting all of their focus on first-party data. But do you think brands are prepared enough, or do you think they're still kind of struggling?
No. Some brands still don't know the full potential of what a first-party data can do versus a third. I mean, third-party data has been the backbone for the advertising industry for years and years and years. But if you look at other browsers like Safari, they don't use third-party cookies. So, you know, it's only Chrome. So I think in this, again, you need to be educated in what a third and first party cookie is and what can you do. And it comes back to what we were talking about before with, even if you're starting to implement things or the adoption of generative AI or just any sort of AI tool, if you're going to solely base your strategy on a third party base, then, you know, your output's not going to be as good as if it was a first party.
Maybe at a disadvantage as well.
Exactly.
Compared to competitors, you'd be way far behind.
I guess from my perspective, Linkby is like an ad tech platform that only like tracks clicks. So when it comes to conversion tracking, we leave it all up to the affiliate platforms, and they have that like kind of conversations with the brands directly as what kind of level of tracking that they're open to kind of allowing the affiliate platforms into access. So we kind of always will lean on those platforms to kind of be best in class of kind of what kind of tracking that they're applying to our campaigns. But hopefully we'll have some kind of conversion tracking added to the platform soon.
I wanted to kind of talk a bit more about your role in your companies and the perspectives that you're bringing as young performance marketers, and especially around data. Do you think you view it differently and the benefits of it and how you could utilize it differently than people who work with you that have been in the industry for much longer?
Yeah, well, I say yes. But no, I think working at Making Signs has really opened up my eyes to, you know, what you can do in digital marketing. So going from more like direct to consumer based work to more B2C and understanding, you know, what are the struggles for other companies or even agencies and what the big tech platforms are struggling with and how we can be a partner to that to help that. It's really opened my eyes to like, okay, this is the scope of digital marketing. that we have today, but the scope is this big, really. And how do you get there to not just get edge in the market, but also to develop not just tools for, as I mentioned, campaigns and stuff like this, but also internal resourcing and like how your day-to-day job can be much more efficient. So for me now, if I went back to a workplace which didn't have, you know, AI implemented or like Gemini for work, for example, I would probably start ripping my hair out a little bit more, and my view on certain things would probably be seen as very out there, because I'm probably thinking like, oh, we should be using this, we should be using AI, generative AI, we should be using predictive AI, we should use automation for doing this, as a lot of brands probably still think, oh no, we need a person to do the creative by hand, we need a person to do the PPC by hand, we need a person to do this. So that's how it's opened my eyes. But I think I'm lucky enough to be in an organization, to be honest, who are very forward thinking, and I learn so much every single day at Making Science, because I work with the most incredible people. I know everyone's probably going to say that about their own company, but they really show where the boundary is and where we can go with not just digital marketing, but in terms of technology, because we have so many like proprietary technologies in each of one of those like specific AI verticals. I mean like generative AI and predictive and automotive. So I don't think my view is different, but I think when we talk about the creative side and how different platforms are changing, that's probably where my views or my generation of views comes in, and that's where the money is for brands today as well.
And with those brands that may be thinking in a more traditional way, looking at more traditional strategies, do you find that they're receptive to those ideas, or is it a bit of a struggle?
It kind of depends, because this is where the big conversation around how different teams are working together in more traditional companies. So in more traditional companies, you have marketing here, you have your data team here, you have your IT team over here. In a more fast forward company, I say fast forward, but I mean more progressive in working with digital, they are working more together. So the CMO is regularly talking to the CTO or the CDO in this case, and they are understanding how data impacts marketing, how IT is impacting marketing, and how marketing is actually impacting them as well. So it's more this coming together to understand like how you can move forward as a brand to consumer, but also in-house, and what tools you can use for corporate.
And Jodie, have you experienced similar things as well in your role, where maybe people who think in more traditional ways might think some of your ideas are a bit out there as well?
100%. And I think with Linkby, we're a new and exciting tool that everyone's always a bit cautious to trial, as like digital content is always kind of pushed to aside. So my whole role is to kind of bring Linkby to the forefront minds of agencies, and they're like, okay, well, I've got my standard out of home plan, I've got my whole media plan set up, why would we utilize Linkby? We've already got our media planners and channels that we work with. So it's just kind of like really opening up their mind to bridging the gap between like affiliates, PR and performance, where we're actually able to see some really strong performance from editorial content. Before, it always used to be like brand awareness and top of a funnel, and never really being able to have that performance marketing element. But that's why we call ourselves like a performance PR platform, where we actually will sit with brands and have their socials, their paid, their PR, their affiliates, their brand wider team, everyone sit on these calls and be like, oh, we'd love to feature in Cosmopolitan. And then the PR team will be like, oh, well, I've got a direct relationship there. And we're like, okay, that's fabulous. But do you have any relationships at these? And how can you then utilize Linkby as a backup solution? Like, we don't want to be checking on anyone's toes, but we just want it to be like the easiest way for people to work collaboratively together. And I guess it's always comes down to budget. Okay, this is my part of budget, and we only want to keep you in our team, when really you can actually be branched out to the wider teams and help benefit them in other ways. But I guess that comes down as well to saying that brands are very like in their lane, they know their demographics, they know what works for them, and they're always like kind of unsure whether to test like new markets, new publishers and things like that. And I feel like with like the younger generation, when I've been able to reach out to like account execs at agencies, I've had so much more better conversations and more success being able like, this is what we do. And I feel like you're really missing a trick by just working with your same preferred partners. And when it is like speaking to those guys that have been in the industry for a few years, they know what they like and they know what works, but you've really got to try and test out new things to hit up new audiences and really drive those new customer acquisitions.
Yeah. I think collaboration is a big one as well, because I've seen it with a few people who are a bit more working in non-traditional ways of performance marketing generally, is they'll work a lot more with teams. They'll work a lot more collaboratively, and you don't really see that with people who are a bit more traditional.
When I work with a brand, I'm probably working with their media agency, their PR agency, their in-house marketing team, and then also on the other side we're working with all of the publishers. So it really is a collaborative piece where everyone can kind of like chip in, and the main like result and outcome of it all is everyone's happy if it all performs very well.
I mean, to add to that as well, so now I work more in-house, so I do everything making science externally, internally. So to the piece about collaboration, I have to be in with every single team in the company to understand, what are you guys doing, what clients are you working with, how can we communicate this, or what can we do with this in terms of events, podcasts, or even something just to highlight an initiative that we do at the company. So I think collaboration is really, really top of mind.
It's like sharing's caring, isn't it? As soon as you share like what we're up to, what they're up to, how we're supporting other brands, or kind of how we can support them, everyone always gets FOMO at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, totally. But I think also it has to do, I think that's also how I've learned a lot of things. You know, imagine if I didn't speak to like a data department, I would not be able to sit here today.
You just sit at your desk struggling for the whole day.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because if you don't get stuck in, like when you speak to to your clients and talk to different teams in their organization, you understand. Okay, but you want this and you want that, but this is the KPI. How do you get there?
100%.
So,
is it all about ROI or is it brand awareness?
What are kind of things that you've seen in your jobs, in your day-to-day, when it comes to data, when it comes to performance marketing, things that you've learned that have worked long-term? So things that have been working, you know, for 10, 20 years plus, that even with AI coming in, with new technologies, they're never going to change. They're things that will always work in performance marketing. And what are things that you think just don't work anymore?
I mean, the things that don't work... Where to start now?
Rigid planning. Having I feel like it's always good to kind of have some kind of like plan for your quarter or your yearly plan, but trends, like you've always got to hop on trends and have that flexibility at the brand side to be able to be like, you know what, we feel like this might be a big opportunity for us here. This is X amount of budget, of test budget. I know people always say they have test budget, but they're never willing to give it out. And really like dive full feet in with that and ride off the success that other brands are seeing, and being open to hearing more about like ways that we have seen it work with other brands and they take that into consideration and trust us. We're all like professionals within our industry and your agency and us within like the publishing world. So I feel it's more about trusting and just jumping in and just riding the wave of trends, I'd say.
Yeah, AI is the biggest trend at the moment. So, and to sort of jump on what you just said, Jodie, it's also trying new platforms, but also seeing what is working out there and take a risk and speak to your departments and say like, hey, how can we actually move forward? Because if you keep reinvesting in the same channels and you're not seeing progression or you're not seeing a bigger market share, obviously there's something here that we need to change. So to have a partner in this digital partner or an ad tech partner or whatever type of partner you need for to meet your KPIs, you need to trust them, as you said, Jodie, but you also need to take their advice because they are the experts in that field. And, you know, end of day, they want to bring you success. They want to bring you a reduced CPA, or they want to increase your conversions, or they want you to get a larger market share. So there are really good partners out there who can take you the extra step rather than you just being stagnant in the same position.
I mean, I don't actually work in performance marketing. I just write about it. But just based on like people I've spoken to, I think one thing that as a young person in the industry, something that I think needs to change is the focus on ROI, which we were talking about before. Because with data, or like with performance specifically, they're looking at what's going to get me the fastest results, and what's going to get me the money, and what's going to show me the money. And if it doesn't work, then I don't want it. But I think there kind of should be a balance where you can look at ROI but not focus on having things just come so fast, and just look at more sustainable strategies, more long-term things that you can keep changing and keep working on and keep building your audience. I think that's just the one thing that is very traditional.
Yeah, I think it's just like within especially the affiliate world, we're always trying to fight for more budget and more kind of opportunity to test out new things. Whenever you speak to a brand team, they give you a budget and they don't care. They don't even put affiliate links in the campaigns. So I think it really is the educational piece on the brand side to take affiliates up to the CMO and actually be like, look, we are the channel where you're able to measure everything. You should invest more in things that work, try out new things, and then you have all the data at your fingertips rather than doing your classic out-of-home activity that you spend X amount on tube ads or whatever it is that you always do at your peak seasons. The great example is Black Friday. You know it's such a saturated market. At Linkby, you can guarantee that you're going to have a piece of coverage as and when you need it to support whatever campaign that you're working on. Rather than like traditional like PR, you're just hoping that you get picked up when every man and his dog is running a Black Friday campaign. It's kind of just understanding what it is that you really want to do, and you've got to put your hands in the pockets and pay for that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a tricky balance, I think, as well, because, I mean, bottom line is revenue. So we
wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, exactly. So
revenue.
I mean, bottom line is revenue, and you need to still have some focus on ROI, whether you are doing long-term strategy or short-term. I mean, short-term, of course, yeah, it's going to be quick. It's going to be an impact, but the longevity of that impact, I don't know. It depends on what campaign you're doing. For example, you guys probably saw the Super Bowl halftime show. That's a very time specified ad for Apple Music and for Kendrick Lamar in this case. So, how long of an impact is that going to have on every partner that's associated with it? So it's a quick one, but what is the longevity? So it's kind of what you do with the impact that you have. With the Super Bowl halftime show, I mean, it's going to make a lot of ROI.
I did see one brand, I forgot what it was, I think it was Aldi, and they tweeted, I'm not going to pay millions for a Super Bowl ad, and that ended up going viral.
Exactly. If you'd never put that out there, they would never have got that.
Exactly. I mean, you can look at also, is it Aldi, who do really funny tweets.
Yep.
So that's obviously long term, but it's short term effect. So obviously they did one now for Valentine's Day, and they were tagging certain brands to sort of create some sort of conversation. And this is a social media strategy from their side, and this is something that has a short term impact, but it creates noise.
And as well, you can then utilize that on your other channels.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we always see. If your brand's been affiliated with, like, I don't know, Taylor Swift wearing your brand new red lipstick, shout that. Like, that's like a great campaign. It doesn't have to be a campaign that you've been working on for, it kind of sucks because it's just like out of your control that this is all taken up.
Yeah.
But like, you really need to like build off the back of whatever's happened and like maximize it to the greatest opportunity. So yeah, an example was with Nas, with Taylor Swift wearing her red lipstick, and off the back of it they were like, we want this everywhere. and then within like a matter of hours or days, the product was sold out. So it really comes back to exactly what it is that the brand wants to achieve. Is it sales? Is it awareness?
Yeah.
Before we move on to the game, what are some trends that you're most looking forward to for data-driven marketing in 2025 or, beyond 2025?
I don't know if this is a trend rather than a want, to be honest. But for people to actually start sorting out their data and looking at the possibilities of, having a solid data foundation and utilizing it to really create like impactful campaigns, but also impactful brand moments like we just spoke about with the NARS thing. So I think that's not really a trend. As I said, I think it's more like just me wanting that for the brands.
I think it's calling out.
I'm calling you out. No, but no, I think it's knowing your data. I think people are starting to understand a little bit more about the data. So I'm looking forward to the trend of people actually understanding and harnessing the power of data and what it means for marketing, but also the trend of more generative AI and predictive AI being used for all sorts of brands in their digital marketing strategies.
I mean, I think that's going to be very exciting, especially with how AI is going to make it so much easier to understand that data and then make it just so much more effective.
100%. I mean, we have an example of one of the products that we've built. It's actually called Trust Generative AI. So it's got literally Gen AI in the name. And one thing that I wish I had a couple of years ago when I was working for this beauty retailer was we had to write product descriptions for each and every one of the products. And you can imagine being like a really big retailer and you had to write a product description. So imagine this poor person, me in this case, writing all those descriptions. As this tool, you can literally put in your prompt and say, okay, so we have 40 pairs of jeans in this case, and they're all different colors. They at least have 8 colors per SKU, and you just put in the prompt to write me the product description for all of this, and it's done within like less than 10 minutes. That would have saved me so much time. So if you don't have AI in workplace to help you and make your time more efficient, I don't know what you're doing.
I agree. What about you, Jodie?
I would say that more personalised ads, which is of course what everyone says. But I feel like even in the last year, we've really like made such an improvement of actually ensuring that our users are seeing the ads that they want to see, and as well just ensuring that they're getting served the ads in the time where they want it or on the platform that they want it. Of course, like the whole TikTok, are we going to get banned? That really shook up the industry for brands to be like, oh, we can't just rely on TikTok Shop now. We really have to think about our other channels, as Google might just like amplify something else that might just completely demise their strategy. So what do brands have in place as like a backup? I feel like is there not really a trend, but it's like brands really do need to think about kind of like dispersing their strategy amongst different campaigns.
They need to be multi-platform,
omnichannel.
Yeah, so they need to look at broader channels,
more flexible as well.
Definitely, and you need to be able to shift that budget because if your strategy is not working on, let's say, Facebook, shift that budget to TikTok or shift it to Meta, shift it to Threads. Even, go where your consumer is.
Okay, we're going to play a very quick round of myth or fact, data-driven.
They're all going to be myths, aren't they?
At least it's just one word answers and we don't have to give an actual answer.
More data equals better decisions. Myth or fact?
Myth.
Fact.
Myth.
Ah!
Focusing on relevant data helps companies make better decisions. Too much data without filtering can cause analysis paralysis and poor outcomes. Data-driven marketing can improve ROI by 5 to 8 times.
Fact.
Yeah.
Fact.
Say that. Yay.
Another one. Personalization can increase engagement by up to 75%.
Fact.
Facts then. So I was rereading the question in my mind.
I was like, do I go quick answers or do I just think about it? I'm going gut instant.
Yeah.
As fact. The source and the stat is that Salesforce found that personalized emails have 29% higher open rates and 41% higher click-through rates, and 75% of consumers prefer personalized experiences. Another point, data-driven marketing is only for large enterprises.
Myth.
Very much.
Big myth.
Why are you so certain that it's about...
Data is necessary for everyone. I mean, whether you are a self-starter, like say you're an entrepreneur, you're a one-man team, or you have 1 billion people under you, like a big corporation, you need data. You need to know what's happening, where things are coming, where people are coming from, and where they're clicking.
And as long as you just understand the top line, then you can also like get advice from like the experts within there, get a whole agency to support you on what it is that you want to achieve.
But also, I mean, using AI.
Yeah.
In that case, like just like using OpenAI and like obviously, yes, you have to be careful and fact check, but I mean, that can help you very much reduce the time to collect your data and then actually start making changes based on that. And then the last one, you need to be a data scientist to use data for marketing.
Myth.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could be a data scientist, but I don't think that'll be on my job role.
But I do think people have that assumption, or at least some people have that assumption.
I think people think data is scary, but data is actually very friendly. Data is very good.
Depends on the data set.
Well, if it's good data, it's friendly. If it's bad data, then maybe not. But no, I think people think data is scary, but data is really the backbone to what you need to start basing a lot of things on in your company.
That will be the tagline of this episode. Data can actually be very friendly.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree. No, I'm joking.
I know that my data managers are all going to love me after this episode.
Well, Noelle, Jodie, thank you for joining me. And I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, thank you, Reem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Digital Disruptors. New episodes of the mini-series will continue to come out fortnightly alongside the main show, Performance Marketing Unlocked. So make sure to stay tuned, and I'll see you next time. This episode was produced by Nav Pal, studio manager at Haymarket.